Hi, this is Dr. Jared Garris. I'm the Glenn County Health Officer, and I'd like to talk for a few moments about what it takes to get our students back into the classrooms. So I think most people are aware that because we've triggered with the state, we're on the watch list, that the kids aren't able to go in and to school physically, and they have to do distance learning. And so these are the things that have made it so that we're on the watch list. These are the things that go into making up that watch list. So if we have more than 100 active cases per 100,000 people, if we get a positivity rate greater than 8%, meaning if we have, of all the people we test, if there's more than 8% of them that are positive, then that triggers. Increase in hospitalization greater than 10%, less than 20% of ICU beds available, as well as if we have less than 25% of the ventilators available. So these are the two that we really have been falling out with. And so the number of cases, now this is based on what the state's website is, a number of cases right now it says that we have 160 and we need to be less than 100. I'll mention, and I'll kind of talk about this a little bit later on, that probably our number is a little bit higher than that. Matter of fact, I'm almost certain that it is a little bit higher than that. And then the percent positive tests, right now we're at 17.5%. We need to get that less than 8. So really we're talking about cutting in half our numbers. That's really kind of what we're talking about to be able to get students back into the classroom. And we have to do it for 14 days in a row. So there is some problems with following the numbers, like I kind of mentioned. And if you try and make them match up, it'll drive you crazy. And let me just kind of talk a little bit about what we do at the health department and how we go about deciding when to post our numbers. So what happens is we've got a computer program and it has everybody who's tested the results, whether they be positive or negative, if they put down their address as being in Glenn County. And so that shows up. We take those people who are positive and we write them on a giant sticky note, and then we have a meeting and we go ahead and we assign out each of those people who are positive to a tracer. The tracer goes ahead and calls them up and asks them, sees if they can figure out where it was that they contracted COVID-19 and also who potentially they may have spread it to. Then they go ahead and they call the people that they potentially spread it to and have them quarantine. So that's kind of how things work at the county level as far as for the tracing. Now, as far as for when we post them, we've learned, unfortunately, that just because somebody shows up in the system doesn't mean that we can count them. That we have to call them and actually really make sure that they live here in Glenn County. For whatever reason, we have a lot of people who put different addresses or boyfriends' houses or parents' houses. I don't know if there's kind of some fear about giving the county their address. I don't know why that is, but we get a lot of that. And then the other problem is that when we try and call them, sometimes it's hard to get a hold of people because they won't answer their phone if it's an unlisted number or if it's a number that they don't recognize. And so these are, so we don't end up counting them until we actually are sure that they really do reside in the county. So that can make it frustrating for giving out numbers, is because like I'm never really sure when exactly that it's counted. So at the school board meeting that we had yesterday for Orland, I mentioned that we had a bunch of cases over the weekend, and then when they posted it in Glenn County, they said that they had 4 cases. Well, that's just because they hadn't run through them all yet. And so today, on Tuesday, we ended up having a bunch of cases. So it'll kind of drive you crazy if you try and follow things too specifically. Now, with the state, I'm not exactly sure what their process is. I do know that at the county level that that when we ask about why our numbers differ, they always say that ours is more up to date and more accurate. Okay, so and I don't think that that's like some kind of a conspiracy thing or anything like that. I think that this is a system that's really overwhelmed. The public health department is not used to doing this kind of thing. And so I think everybody is doing the very best that they can. It's just, it's a little bit difficult with the amount of data that's coming in and the need for all the tracing and everything else. So So I have kind of some concerns with the possible over-testing. So my fear is that we've got people who are going to kind of game the system and say, oh, gee, everybody go ahead and get tested. And that makes it even easier right now because here in Orland, we've got the Optum site that just opened today. But we really, as a nation, there's a lot of demand for testing, and the amount of supplies for being able to do that testing is very limited. And that's once again, that's the entire nation. Regionally, here locally, that's the case as well. And it's taking 7 to 10 days to be able to get results back. If we go ahead and increase the amount of testing that we do on people who are just not having any symptoms or haven't had any exposures, what that's going to do is that's going to make that so that it's more like 14, 15, 16 days. And it's going to make it so that we can't do any of the tracing. And when we have situations like nursing homes where we need to get results back quickly, we're not going to be able to do that. And we're not going to be able to have our tracers reach out and contact people and put people on quarantine and do the things that we know help decrease the spread of COVID-19. When we look at all of the countries that have done well with COVID-19, they've done lots of testing and lots of tracing with that. And we lose that ability if we just have a bunch of people come in and get tested for no reason. In the end, I'm afraid that if we do that, even we will lower that one number, it will actually end up making our number of total cases go up because we won't be able to do that tracing. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So as opposed to worrying about the numbers or trying to get everybody and their brother to go out and get tested, this is really what we should be doing, okay? And it's 4 things, and they're not complicated things, but this is really what drives the spread of COVID-19. The first one is physical distancing, and I'm changing that term. I've been referring to it as social distancing, but really we're not asking people not to be social. What we're asking is to be social at a distance. Okay, and so if we can be just 4 feet away from somebody, the chance of spread of COVID-19 goes down by 5 times less likely. 5 times less likely just by being 4 feet. If you take another half a step back and you make it 6 feet, then that even becomes less. So if we can have our conversations at 6 feet, that really makes a big difference. Wearing a mask, and I know that there's been a lot of political, debate about this. Reality is that all the data that just keeps coming is just more and more in favor of wearing the masks. And the CDC recommends it. The World Health Organization recommends it. Pretty much every college that has a medical school has some kind of a position statement on the use of wearing masks. And almost every country in the world right now is wearing masks. Okay, they help. When you're sick, stay home. We have so many people who spread it to 10, 12, 15 people because when they're sick, they just continue to go out and to work, and it just leads to more and more cases of COVID-19. And then the last thing is keep your circle small. And when I talk about a circle, I mean about the people who you allow to be less than 6 feet apart for more than 15 minutes without a mask. And we need to keep that circle small. So for me personally, that's really like my immediate family, right? Not really much else besides that. And that really helps protect me. The other thing is that we need to be aware of who's in our circle and who their circles are. So say for instance that I had a son who was going out and doing, here, there, and everywhere. Well, in some ways, really that's exposing me to everybody as well. And so being really mindful of who's in our circle and then the people in our circle, who's in their circle. If we can do that and keep our circles small, that's really going to help. I'm really hopeful that as a community that we can do these simple things, decrease the spread of COVID-19, and be able to get the kids back in the classrooms soon, and also to go ahead and to help make our community a safer place. Thank you very much.